The casino chips clattered across our kitchen table like tiny plastic tombstones. My husband's credit card statement lay open between us, the $7,800 withdrawal from our joint savings highlighted in neon yellow. Ryan's face drained of color when he saw me standing there, his excuses dying before they reached his lips. "It's not what you think," he finally managed, but his eyes darted to his packed gym bag by the door. It was the same bag I'd watched him fill with clothes an hour earlier, while he thought I was still at work. Outside, his parents' luxury SUV idled in our apartment complex parking lot, its engine a low, impatient growl. Through the kitchen window, I could see his mother checking her watch, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the leather steering wheel. The same steering wheel my overtime hours had helped pay for last Christmas. The words, "payment to Golden Palace Casino," stared back at me from the statement, mocking months of double shifts and skipped lunches. The money I'd been saving for 3 years to start my own graphic design business was gone in a single afternoon. My name is Olivia. I'm 32 and a graphic designer. This is the story of how I reclaimed my worth from the family who saw me as nothing but an ATM. Our apartment felt suddenly foreign, like I was seeing it clearly for the first time. The bills stacked neatly on the counter, all addressed to me. The gaming console Ryan had needed, purchased with my credit card. The framed wedding photo where his parents stood beaming beside us, their rent check due in my checkbook. For 18 months, I'd been drowning while they watched, occasionally tossing me anvils instead of lifelines. I'd met Ryan at a work conference in Columbus. He was charming, attentive, quick to compliment my designs when I showed him my portfolio over coffee. 2 years younger, with a winning smile and what I thought was ambition, he seemed like a dream, especially for someone like me who'd grown up feeling invisible in my small Ohio hometown. We married quickly, my practical nature temporarily overridden by his promises of partnership and stability. "We're a team," he'd said at our wedding, his eyes crinkling with what I mistook for sincerity. "Your dreams are my dreams." What I didn't know then was that Ryan had already been fired from his sales job for skipping work to gamble, or that his parents had been floating him loans for years, which explained their eager approval of our whirlwind engagement once they learned about my steady income and savings account. After the wedding, everything changed. Ryan quit his next job without consulting me. His parents suddenly couldn't afford their condo payments, and I became the sole provider for 3 adults who treated my exhaustion as a personal failing. "You'll handle it, Olivia," Ryan would say, barely looking up from his game controller when I mentioned our dwindling savings. "We're a team, right?" Then he'd turn up the volume. Conversation over. I picked up freelance design work after my day job, often working until 2 a.m. to keep us afloat. Meanwhile, Ryan's gambling escalated from occasional casino trips to daily obsession. His parents called constantly, their voices sharp with entitlement, demanding to know why this month's check was late. "Ryan always took care of us before you," his mother would say, the accusation clear. "Maybe if you worked harder." I believed them when they said I was lucky to have Ryan, that no one else would want me at my age. The fear of ending up alone kept me trapped in their web of manipulation. Until today. I looked at the casino chips scattered across our table, evidence Ryan hadn't bothered to hide, and something inside me shifted. The fear that had paralyzed me for months crystallized into something harder, sharper. "You're right," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "It's not what I think. It's worse." I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward him, our savings account, $0.00. I swiped to the next screen, my personal checking account, also empty. Another swipe. My credit cards, all maxed out. Ryan's face cycled through confusion, then alarm. That's impossible. There should be at least $40,000 in savings. $43,812, I corrected. My freelance earnings from the last year, all gone now. His eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" "Nothing compared to what you've done." My pulse quickened as his parents' car horn blared outside. Ryan glanced nervously toward the window. "Look, we can talk about this later. I need to run," I finished for him. "With the last of our money? While your parents drive you to the airport?" The shock on his face confirmed my guess. I'd overheard his late-night call with his father yesterday, something about starting fresh, and she'll never know until it's too late. Ryan's shock quickly hardened into something ugly. You don't understand. I'm this close to a big win that will fix everything. He gestured with his fingers, nearly touching. I just need a little more capital. You need help, I said quietly, and I need a divorce. He laughed, a harsh sound that stripped away any lingering doubts I had. Divorce? With what money, Olivia? You're broke. We're broke, and no one's going to loan you a dime with your credit score after I'm done. I crossed my arms, steadying myself against the counter. You've thought of everything, haven't you? That's why you married me, he said with that familiar smirk. I'm the brains, you're the bankroll. The car horn blared again, longer this time. Ryan grabbed his gym bag, already moving toward the door. I'll send for my things. Don't bother changing the locks. There's nothing worth coming back for anyway. I remained still as he reached for the doorknob. Ryan, I called, my voice eerily calm. Aren't you forgetting something? He turned, impatient. What now? Your parents' rent check. It's due tomorrow. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. Write it before you leave for work, the usual amount. I smiled, a small private thing. Of course. The door slammed behind him, and I counted to 10 before moving to the window. I watched as Ryan threw his bag into the back seat, his mother's arms gesturing wildly as he slid in beside her. His father gunned the engine, and they peeled out of the parking lot. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. Only then did I pull out the second phone I'd kept hidden in my desk drawer, the one I'd purchased 3 months ago with cash from my personal emergency fund when I first noticed the irregular withdrawals from our joint account. I dialed the number I'd memorized. Detective Wilson? It's Olivia Harris. It's happening exactly like I reported last month. He took the bait. 2 hours later, I sat in a small room at the police station, a cup of cooling coffee between my hands, as Detective Wilson explained what would happen next. I'd driven straight there after Ryan left, knowing there wasn't much time before their flight. The tracker we placed on his parents' vehicle shows they're headed towards Cincinnati Airport, she said, pointing to a blinking dot on her computer screen. We've alerted TSA. They won't make it to the gate. I nodded, relief and vindication washing over me in equal measure. I still can't believe they fell for it, Detective Wilson said, shaking her head. You transferred the actual money somewhere else? A new account, I confirmed, at a different bank. I've been moving small amounts for months, replacing them with transfers from my credit line to maintain the balance. Ryan never checked the transaction history, just the totals. What I didn't tell her was how I'd learned to be so careful, by watching Ryan and his parents manipulate financial systems for months. I'd studied their methods, noted their patterns, and then used that knowledge to protect myself. When we intercepted his father's phone calls about leaving the country, we suspected they might try something like this, she continued. The wiretap we got after your initial report last month has been invaluable. But we needed evidence of intent. You took a huge risk. I thought about the years I'd spent diminishing myself to fit into spaces too small, the nights I'd worked until my vision blurred while Ryan gambled away our future. Not as risky as staying, I replied. 3 days later, I sat in a coffee shop directly across from the courthouse, waiting for the arraignment I'd been notified about by the prosecutor's office. My former in-laws emerged first, their designer clothes exchanged for county-issued orange jumpers, wrists shackled as officers led them toward separate transport vehicles. Ryan followed minutes later, his face ashen as another officer guided him down the steps. Unlike his parents, who had prior financial misconduct convictions, Ryan would likely serve less time. But the charges were serious: misappropriation of funds, crossing state lines with stolen property, conspiracy to commit theft. I'd provided investigators with everything: account statements, recorded conversations, witness testimony from Ryan's former colleagues who had also been scammed. The prosecutor had called my evidence meticulous and damning. As the transport vehicles pulled away, a familiar figure approached my table. "Mind if I join you?" Marcus asked, sliding into the chair across from me. Marcus had been Ryan's college roommate before becoming another victim of his schemes. When I'd reached out 2 months ago after finding his contact information in an old loan document Ryan had carelessly left in our filing cabinet, he'd been eager to help build the case. "How does it feel?" he asked, watching my expression carefully. I considered the question, stirring my latte. "Like waking up," I finally said. He nodded, understanding. "The prosecutor says your testimony was the linchpin. Without it, they might have gotten away with it again." "They had a lot of practice," I said. 7 women before me that I discovered when I hired a private investigator with the last of my personal savings, all convinced they were lucky to have Ryan, all left financially ruined. "But not you," Marcus pointed out. "No," I agreed, "not me." I pulled out my laptop and opened the file I'd been working on, the business plan for my new graphic design studio. The loan had been approved that morning, backed by the funds I'd managed to protect from Ryan's reach and the settlement from our divorce, which had been finalized last week after Ryan pleaded guilty and waived his rights to contest it. "Your first client," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were contracts for his company's rebranding project, a job that would cover my expenses for months. "You don't have to do this," I told him. "I know," he replied. "But good work deserves recognition, and from what I've seen of your portfolio, this is a sound business decision." As we discussed project timelines, my phone buzzed with a text from Detective Wilson. "Transfer complete. Restitution payments will continue monthly as ordered by the court." The judge had been clear during sentencing 2 weeks ago. Every cent Ryan and his parents had taken from me would be repaid from their seized assets. It wouldn't happen overnight, but it would happen. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood in the doorway of my new studio space in downtown Columbus, keys in hand. The morning light streamed through tall windows, illuminating the potential of empty walls and open floor plans. My first 3 employees would start next week, all women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse. I'd named the company Phoenix Design, complete with a logo of vibrant red and gold wings rising from stylized ashes. Some might call it too on the nose, but I found comfort in the obvious symbolism. Sometimes, clarity is more valuable than subtlety. My phone rang, a call from the support group I'd started for survivors of financial exploitation. We'd grown from 3 members to 30 in just a few months, each person learning to recognize the patterns I'd missed for too long. As I answered the call, I caught my reflection in the window glass. Shoulders straight, eyes clear, face relaxed. I hardly recognized this woman who looked back at me, this woman who had learned that being alone wasn't nearly as frightening as being used. I still kept Ryan's casino chips in a small box on my desk, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found when everything was taken away. Strength I didn't know I had. Resilience I'd always doubted. A voice that, once found, refused to be silenced again. That night, I called my sister back in our hometown, the one I'd pitied for her quiet life with just her cat for company. We talked for hours, really talked, without the fear and shame that had colored our conversations during my marriage. "I'm proud of you," she said before we hung up, "for fighting back, for helping others do the same." Fighting back. Such a simple phrase for such a complicated journey, but that's what it was, in the end. Not just revenge, but reclamation. Not just punishment, but justice. Not just ending something toxic, but beginning something necessary. For every person who's ever been told they're lucky to be chosen, for every person who's dimmed their light to avoid being left, for every person who's carried others at the expense of themselves. This is what I learned. Your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply proving them wrong. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.